10 years ago, the addition of a dome atop the Oklahoma State Capitol completed the architect's vision for the nearly 100-year-old structure. What no one foresaw was the damage from sunlight entering through the dome's windows. Now experts are looking at a high-tech solution from the space program to protect the irreplaceable art inside the Capitol.
An independent conservator hired last spring to examine the effect of sunlight inside the Capitol Rotunda says the light will eventually destroy the artwork unless something is done. Capitol architect Dwayne Mass says they're considering several possible answers to the problem.
Motorized scrims are the most common application we see. Unfortunately, there's no electricity at these locations, and the motorized scrims are notoriously bad for breaking down. The little motors in them in the shades when they quit working.
Mass concedes motorized scrims would have the advantage of protecting the artwork while still allowing light into the rotunda at certain times of the day. They also come with a steep price tag.
So when we add in the cost of the fabric, the roller fabric, the scrim, the electrical installation to make it work, and then the maintenance, just the cost of installing those alone, we were budgeting around, with the electrical changes that have to be made, around $350,000.
Maintenance is another potential stumbling block. One company that initially expressed interest in installing scrims has already backed away.
They were somewhat afraid of the project because they were certain they could not get it out of the one-year warranty period without at least having one of them break down. And it is a very unfriendly place to work, up in, shall we say, up inside the dome.
There is a simpler and cheaper alternative.
Recently, we were able to discover an acrylic utilized by NASA. And this acrylic has an ability to filter 95 to 98% of the UV light out.
The acrylic glass is similar to that used on the space shuttle, but much thinner. Mass says blocking the UV rays, which cause most of the damage, is the first priority.
If we can make this acrylic work in the simplest of fashion, like a simple storm window, if this UV filtering acrylic works, it will work at a cost more than likely that will be less than 10% of any other solution.
Mass estimates the cost of covering each of the dome windows with acrylic would be less than $30,000. Oklahoma Arts Council Assistant Director Amber Sharples is intrigued by the proposal, but still has reservations.
I do believe that the acrylic sheets are a great solution as a first step, but I do think that before the State Capitol Preservation Commission makes a final decision, that they hear the pros and cons of going with the acrylic sheets and what the possible consequences could be if the bands of light that are coming through are not mitigated.
Those bands of visible light are not as destructive as UV rays, but can still cause damage in the long term.
Because while we may put up the acrylic sheets and those would mitigate and greatly reduce the UV at the beginning, we may be looking 10 years down the road that the intensity of the light bands, if they are not mitigated or reduced greatly, we might be revisiting the same discussion or problem later.
Until a solution is found, preservationists are considering moving some of the artwork out of the sunlight.
So we are working with the State Capitol Preservation Commission here in the next couple of months to make a formal presentation of where certain pieces would be moved and finding other locations here on the 4th floor where they're still prominent, accessible to the public.
The Commission's next meeting is October 18th. A final decision on a solution is expected before the end of the year.